In today's video, we're going to talk about a concept that you might be overlooking. At Derek On-Chain and Crypto Fluency, our project, our mission is to educate you on the opportunity that is right here before our eyes. This blockchain revolution of technology, disruptive innovation that is taking over the way things are being built in the internet, as the internet upgrade overall, and how this blockchain technology, as it is a data storage mechanism, also will be infused into most operations that the world has to offer. So organizations, businesses, multiple industries will be affected by blockchain in our view. And we want to show you the potential opportunity you could be faced with overall. Okay, so one of the things we do is we talk about projects. We talk about projects that are launching on the Cardano blockchain. We talk about ways where you could look at how you can participate. We also talk about, aside from projects, is we talk about concepts. Like we did a concept video about where I showed a parallel, an analogy from my hike down Yosemite as it relates to people investing in bull and bear markets. That was a concept video. And I got a lot of concept videos to come that are in my mind, that I share with my team, that I share with my smart money members on the Crypto Fluency community ecosystem. And this is a concept back here that I want to share with you today. Now, I'm not going to get up close and personal with this chart. It's not about what I have written here in detail. You could probably see some of the stuff, maybe you can't. But I'm going to share with you the concept, the overall concept. And always feel free to reach out to me at Crypto Fluency. Send us an email, ask us a question, and we'll respond. Within a day, we'll talk to you and bring you on board more in detail on what exactly is that I am doing here. I also do videos that I don't post on YouTube just for the community members. That is free for you to join, where I get into the nitty-gritty and we do AMA type questions for the more serious engager. Okay? Now this concept is something that took me a while to take serious, and it might be the same for you. And when I first began getting into crypto, in Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these other ERC20 tokens and all these other blockchains and all these different wallets and all these different exchanges, I realized that there was something special about Cardano, right? There was many special things about Cardano that brought me to the Cardano blockchain, and I have spent my time over the past 5 years focused primarily in the Cardano blockchain. Now, what this concept is the ability to review Cardano Native Tokens, which are CNTs for short. So when you hear me say CNT, I'm talking about a Cardano Native Token. There have been several Cardano Native Tokens, thousands, that have been launched on the Cardano blockchain as of March 2022. Okay, we're coming up on almost 2 years, right? It's like we got what? It's July right now, and this March coming up will be 2 years. So, like I said, back before March 22, there was only Cardano. And what you saw in the blockchain space, in the blockchain world, was Ethereum and all of its ERC20 tokens, all of its DeFi protocols, and all of these layer 2s that were being built on the Ethereum blockchain. And there was so much hype, and there was so much buzz. They went through their summer. They went through their DeFi summer. And Cardano was speculated to be this ghost chain, this really insignificant blockchain. And the people who were saying that weren't doing the research. They weren't doing what it was necessary to be done to even understand and think for themselves. And so this is what this video is about, to try to explain to you some concepts here. I knew back then, because I was reading the white papers, I went on the IOHK channel, I watched every single one of the videos, Professor Aguilero's, Bernardo David. He's one of my favorite persons to watch, describing what Ouroboros was, their proof of stake mechanism, describing what Plutus was, and all the different versions of Plutus, which is their smart contract language. Now, these are all innovations that Cardano built by themselves through a rigorous scientific peer review process. And because they took that enormous challenge to go through a scientific peer review process, which takes an enormous amount of time and money and energy, and also risking they're bearing their ass in a way, right? They're putting their papers out to a community of scientists and computer scientists and mathematicians so that they can review these papers and tear them apart, break them down, find out what was wrong with them, prove them wrong, to where they went through that process and came up with an actual proof of stake, a proof of stake. It's a proof. In mathematics, when something is proved, it's proven without a doubt that this thing works or not, right? And so this proof of stake is something no other blockchain was even thinking about, because Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's all about proof of work. And even the people that want to tell me right now, well, Ethereum is right now, it's proof of stake because they made the migration to proof of stake. I'd say if you really look at what they did with their proof of stake, you would see ginormous differences between what Cardano's proof of stake is and Ethereum's proof of stake. So without getting into the weeds of proof of stake, proof of work, and all of this stuff, Ouroboros and Plutus and all the different versions, Cardano has done something different in how they constructed their blockchain into different layers, with their computation layer and their settlement layer, and how they've been able to divide these two aspects, where in Ethereum it's different, right? There's so many differences, and if these things sound technical to you, then yeah, it is a very technical thing. But you as a Cardano understander and engager and researcher of Cardano, the more you dig into Cardano and the more you do your own research and own due diligence, you will come to find these treasures of understanding that you can't get from a person. There's nobody out there talking about it. In fact, many people are just putting out FUD and all kinds of like misinformation about Cardano and whatever, right? No, they're taking their time. And for me, as somebody who is not a developer, I'm not tech savvy, who's just a person who's an opportunist trying to recognize this potential and this opportunity, while also trying to mitigate all the scams and rug pulls and wildness that goes on in some of these projects where they're just trying to like take advantage of you as a user. You find that Cardano is one to completely appreciate and to be grateful for their hard work. And so you as a developer, right? So I understood then that if you were a developer, and I'm not one of them, but if you were one of them, what blockchain are you going to want to build upon? And so Cardano's native tokens the projects that are using Cardano's layer 1 infrastructure, the security of their layer 1 Ouroboros protocol, they can use that security and build upon that layer 1 as a layer 2 protocol. So every single thing that you see over here, okay, and there are 30 of them listed down here, these are all layer 2 protocols building on the Cardano blockchain. These are DeFi protocols, these are metaverse and gaming protocols, these are AI protocols, and there are several other ones. There are meme coins here. Okay, I got the Giro wallet on the board. There's Wallet. These are protocols, layer 2 protocols, building on the Cardano blockchain. So these are Cardano Native Tokens, CNTs, building on the Cardano protocol. And I used to sit there, I used to have dinner, I used to have lunch with Ethereum investors in 2020 and 2022. And in 2019, late 2018, I made the decision to allocate all of what I was doing, mostly all of everything, into the Cardano ecosystem. And take all of my eggs and all the diversification and bring them into the same basket. And I was reading a financial book one time and it told me, it said, sometimes, I forget who it was, there's so much stuff that I'm reading all the time, it's hard for me sometimes to remember exactly who says the quote or whatever, but it sticks in my mind as something I remember. And so the overall sentiment was sometimes you put your eggs in one basket and you watch that basket so that you then can disperse. And this is what I understood the potential was for Cardano, because I knew there were going to be a tremendous amount of layer 2s that would build upon Cardano at some point. Not right now, not in 2020, 2018, late 2018, the beginning of 2019. No, not 2020, not 2021. It was only until 2022 when the decentralized exchanges launched, because they had to wait for these hard forks. They had to wait for Shelley and Mary and Alonzo and Vassal hard forks. Well, Vassal came later. But they had to wait for these hard fork combinator events to take place so that these layer 2s can officially launch. You know, I got wind and I knew that some were building and that the potential for layer 2s to launch on the Cardano network was enormous. And at that same time, if you look at late 2018, early 2019, and through 2019 to 2020, what do you see? You see Ethereum with crazy layer 2s building on its blockchain. So as you can imagine, when I'm at dinner talking to my friends and these Ethereum investors about my thesis on Cardano, you could just imagine how I was looked at the table. Like, what are you talking about? You know, you're absolutely crazy. And it's funny that these same people now, I'm seeing them migrate more and more and more of their portfolio over to the Cardano ecosystem. I see more and more developers migrate their projects to the Cardano ecosystem now than I even could have imagined before. There's something called the Great Ethereum Migration right now going on, where lots of these projects are moving over. In fact, Cardano, with their Yella language, or their Yella instrument, allows for Ethereum developers to bring their Ethereum projects onto the Cardano blockchain. So here we are now, though. Here we are now, almost 2 years. I mean, maybe I'm jumping the gun on almost 2 years, but like, let's say a year and a half, around a year and a half, coming up on a year and a half, where we now have all these layer 2s building and they're growing. The amount of layer 2s coming out into the Cardano ecosystem is growing at a rapid rate. These are only 30 projects. There are like 75 other ones. I don't have a whiteboard big enough. Actually, I had to get this one at Staples. it's bigger than the other one I had. So this right here tracks me out, because I'm going to track this, and I'll show you this in real time. This takes me all the way to January 1st, 2025 is the last month you see over here all the way in the end. Okay? And I'm tracking these. And what am I tracking? Here's the concept. Back to my original point. The concept of this video is I want you to try, if you're looking and if you're checking out the Cardano Native Tokens, and you're like, oh my God, what's Ape Society? Oh my God, what's Cornucopias? What I would suggest that you try to start doing, and this is what this chart is it is tracking the price of these protocols against the price of ADA. ADA is the Cardano Native Token, ADA. Cardano is ADA. And it is the utility token used on the entire blockchain, and most all of these layer 2s are using ADA as the utility token on all of the DEXs. So if you go on to Vi Finance, if you go on to Wing Riders, if you go on to MinSwap, Muesli Swap, Sunday Swap, you go on to Liquid Finance, which is a lending protocol. You go to AADA, lending protocol. You are going to see that ADA is the major currency transacted in all these DEXs and paired with every single other native token. Okay? So in a decentralized exchange, you don't have fiat currency like dollar and yen, right? You don't have the fiat currencies. You have ADA in the Cardano ecosystem layer 2 protocols. And so ADA is paired in the liquidity pools with every other token, like World Mobile token, Impawa, SNEC is a big meme coin coming out right now. Giro. Let's look at some of them. We got Indy, we got Noom, we got Clay, we got NMaker, we got Sunday, we got Iagon, Indy, Paribus, Cody. Cody is something special. Cody is not on the Cardano blockchain, but they've developed JED, which is a stable token. And they partner with Cardano, so I track Cody also. NewNet. We got AGIX, SingularityNet, Genius Yield, World Mobile, right? This is a few of them. And what's cool is that, let's say right now, ADA is at 30 cents. You might be thinking, wow, that's cheap. And yeah, it is compared to its previous all-time high of $3, but not to the investors back in the day who are buying it at 3 cents. That's 100%, that's 10x up from there, right? So a lot of these projects that have come out, if you look into these prices, like for instance, let's check out Clay. Clay right now is 0.02 of 1 ADA. So for every ADA, for every Clay that you have, it's going to get you 0.02 of 1 ADA. Now, NMaker is 0.007 of an ADA. So one NMaker token is 0.007 of an ADA. Giro, 0.014. Okay? Sunday Swap, 0.04 of an ADA. MinSwap, 0.08. All right, Copy, 0.10. Why am I saying these things? I'm saying these things because these projects have not gone through their summer. What is a summer? A summer is like a bull market. These little projects, these you can call them little projects. Some of these up here are going to be behemoths. I promise you, behemoths with large market caps. And when that happens, these prices are going to go up. You can maybe speculate that, right? This is all speculation. This isn't where we're talking about financial advice and You know, there's nothing where I'm trying to describe to you to invest in any of these projects, and you don't even know if I'm investing in any of these projects, because I'm not telling you I'm investing in any of these projects. I'm simply telling you about a practice of tracking these projects against the price of ADA. Now, let's say you were to invest in some of these. The reason it might be valuable to start tracking what these projects are against the price of ADA is because if overall some of these projects outperform ADA, it might be that you could get more ADA overall in the end. And so it could be that you can utilize some of these projects to overall combine to get more ADA, right? And vice versa, right? So you'll see that some of these projects are going to go from 0.1 of an ADA to one for one. So something that's right now 0.03 of an ADA could someday be 1 for 1 for ADA. So if I take out my calculator, I got calculators around, right? I take out my calculator, all right? Let's just say I take $1,000, okay? I take $1,000, and I divide that, okay? Let's divide that into something that is 0.03 right now, right? 0.003. I love that because it just, in this imaginary little process we have, so that gives us 333,333 of this imaginary token that we have, right? So the dollar value, so now these prices here are priced towards ADA. Now, I wasn't thinking about doing this, but I'm gonna share my screen and I'm gonna show you a wonderful website that I probably have up. I have not rehearsed this, and I'm gonna show you this website that I always have up. Here we are on taptools.io, another wonderful website for anyone who is interested in the Cardano ecosystem. And so you can connect your wallet. There is so much to do here. And what I love about this website is it is specifically for Cardano network, the Cardano community. It has trending tokens and all this stuff up here, trending NFTs. Okay, so I have created my own watch list, and these tokens here pretty much match the tokens that you saw up on my dashboard there that I have up behind me here in the video, mixed with a bunch of these other little tokens that you can accumulate on drip drops or what have you. And so let's look at something like so in my example it was 0.003. Let's look at NMaker, because that's kind of one that's like that. Let's look at NMaker. We took $1,000. Now, we're not talking about putting $1,000 in NMaker, just to be clear. We did on the calculator. We're going to come right back to the calculator. We did a little bit of an imaginary thing with something that was 0.003 of a dollar, and we took $1,000 into this token. Okay, and what we did was we got 333 of the token. So I'm just showing you this because something that is 0.0023 of a dollar is actually 0.007 of an ADA at ADA's current price. So ADA is like around 30 cents right now. And so what's cool about TapTools is it shows you here in real time the price of like the GENS token here in dollar and what that is in ADA. So this one here is 1.87. So this one is already more than a dollar. And well, why? All of these tokens have incredibly different tokenomics, okay? And so that is something to weigh in and consider when you are looking at tokens. Apart from their white paper and their team and everything else that you can research, tokenomics is like the first thing that you look at. For instance, Indie token has very small tokenomics. You can click into the Indie token, and what you do is you look over here, and it's going to show you the token supply. There is only 35 million tokens that will ever be distributed into the Indy protocol. Now you might be like, well, that's a lot. That is very small. Okay, Bitcoin only has 21 million. Indy is very small. 35 million is extremely small. Okay, and then it'll also tell you the circulating supply, like how much have been released. 16.4% have been released, so they still have a lot more in their emissions. And when you look at your tokenomics, you're not just looking at these numbers, they're telling you everything about their roadmap and how they are distributing their tokens to the ecosystem, to the team. They have farming, environmental projects, there's hiring projects. There's so much involved in a protocol's tokenomics that I highly advise you consider if you are thinking about getting into any of these projects, right? So for instance, let's take another project like Meld. Meld has a 4 billion token supply. The more tokens there are, the less it's going to be in relation to ADA. The fact that Indy had a smaller token supply, right? It's going to then be more as it's matched to ADA, if that makes any sense. So let's go back here. Because Meld has 4 billion of them, the tokenomics are a lot larger in that sense, where they have more of a max supply than, let's say, Gens, which Gens I think has 100 million. AGIX has 1 billion. I know Wi-Fi has 450 million. Meld has 4 billion. I know that Copy has like 3.2 something billion. Min has 5 billion. Liquid has 21 million. I think AADA has like 23 million or something like that. 29.5 million. Let's test myself and see how many I know here. And this is what I'm challenging you with doing right now. I'm challenging you to do this research so you can actually understand what the tokenomics are of these. You're not just like looking at these projects and saying, yeah, I'm just gonna like, invest in some of these here. No, you should understand what they are. There's I think 1 billion here at NTX. I know Wing Riders has 100 million. Okay, Drip follows, it has the same amount as Cardano, like 42 billion. All right, and so on and so forth. I know Giro has 500 million. Okay, and I kind of have an understanding of all the other ones. Let's check PBX. Totals to the 10 billion, right? 10 billion. So even though I look at this a lot, I still don't exactly know everything. And TapTools is so cool, right? It says like, where can you buy PBX? Wing Riders. This is the Wing Riders logo. TapTools is a really wonderful resource. Okay, so now we know that these projects have different supplies, different emission schedules, like different ways to release them in different ways. Like MinSwap's got 5 billion and it releases 670 million every single day into their DEX for yield farming rewards for a certain amount of time. And they, slowly but surely release all their tokens. And it's upon you as a person who might be interested in these protocols to understand when and where they're releasing and how long and what have you. Okay, to affect your decisions on this. But this concept, right, and then we're going to wrap this video up, right? We're going to wrap this video up soon. We're just talking about this concept because if I now we took $1,000 to this imaginary token that's 0.003 of a dollar and might be 0.007 or 0.008 of an ADA. And we got 333,000 of these bad boys. So, right, we're on the same page, right? We took $1,000. Now we have 333,000 of these tokens that we've researched, and we know their token supply, and we love the team, and they're doing great things in the world, and what have you. So much that we were willing to risk 1,000 of our dollars in the event that this thing doesn't even do anything, right? So we would never want to just throw our $1,000 to something we didn't believe in. for this belief in being early in this project, we got 333,000 of these tokens. Now, what happens if this token goes through a massive bull run and somehow, and I know it's crazy to think of, climbs up to be 1-for-1 with ADA? Well, that would mean that you had now 333,000 ADA. So you could trade this for 333,000 ADA. That's a concept I'm just trying to wrap your mind around, right? Now, could that happen? I mean, you don't know that it can't, and you don't know that it can. And those are two cool things to understand. You don't know that it can't, right? And you don't know that it can. I think we focus on the fact that, like, well, it'll never happen. Well, of course it could never happen. And you might say, well, the price of ADA is 30 cents. And what if the price of ADA goes to $3? And the price of ADA goes to $7. Okay. So if the price of ADA goes to $7, that's a huge growth from where it was, right? From where it is right now. Do I think that ADA can go to $7 in the bull run? I don't know, right? It hit $3 in the last bull run. So could we imagine it going back to retest its previous all-time high, $3, and then surpassing that and going to a higher all-time high? Sure. So you're saying, well, why would I ever? This would be even less than. You'd be right if you weren't factoring in the fact that this project could go through a bull run also. So back when I moved my decision to move the Bitcoins and the Ethereum and all this stuff over to Cardano was because of this same understanding. Yes, Bitcoin is at $3,000. It could go to $100,000. Sure it could. And so for my investment, take your calculator out with how much you put in there, times how many Bitcoins you have, or fractions of the Bitcoin you have, or how many Ethereum or ERC20 tokens or Cardano or whatever, and then speculate, say, if it goes to, Cardano goes to $3, or in my scenario back in the late 2019 era, before the bull run, the late 2018 era, okay, very early 2019, I did these calculations and I said, okay, if Bitcoin goes to $100,000, if it goes to $250,000, it would still probably be less than an asset like ADA that's like 2 cents, 3 cents. If it even went to $1, or if it went to $3, and it did go to $3, right? And so something that was 2 cents that went to $3 grows so much more in value in terms of percentage gain. So if you're putting a dollar bill into something, it's going to grow astronomically larger than something that grows from $3,000 to $250,000 in Bitcoin's case. And it didn't go to $250,000. It went to like $60,000. It went from $3,000 to $60,000. That was massive. The gain from Cardano's growth from 2 cents, 3 cents to $3 was way more massive. All right, so these projects and cryptocurrency projects are all in a tide, right? You know how tides rise and lower. There's high tides and low tides. And right now everything's in a low tide. But when we go through a bull run, the tide will rise, and all these projects are going to rise with the tide. They're all going to rise with the tide, like Cardano rose with the tide of the last big bull market, where nobody cared about Cardano. Nobody cared about it, right? It rose with the tide. These, in my opinion, could rise with the tide. So even though Cardano goes to $3, to $5, these might grow to in my opinion, this is why I'm just kind of like using this to wrap it around my mind, they could go to like 1-for-1 of ADA. And if that happens, this 333,000 could get you 333,000 ADA at a time where ADA could be at $3. Think about that. That's crazy to think of. And I understand. And what if I'm half wrong? What if I'm half wrong on that? So maybe these 333,000 only get you 150,000 ADA at a time where it's $3. Okay? Do the math on that. 150,000 times 3 is $450,000. You kept in mind, right? You put in $1,000, right? What if I'm half wrong on that? What if this only gets to half of that? 75,000 ADA at $3, right? What if I'm half wrong on that? And this only gets you 35,000 ADA. And what if I'm half wrong on that? Gets you 15,000 ADA. 15,000 ADA times 3, $45,000 for $1,000. And so I hope that I was able to convey the original concept of this video, which is to make you aware of Cardano Native Tokens being built on the Cardano blockchain at a beautiful time right now, where they have yet to experience a bull run. And why that is so incredible is that every single time a bull run happens, the asset faces the law of diminishing returns. That means that every single bull run that goes on, the returns are lower. So the people who invested in Bitcoin in 2009 and 8 and 9 and all that, when Bitcoin was a nickel, Bitcoin was 10 cents, 25 cents, those people got the largest gains. And then the next bull run, they got massive gains again, but less, way less than the first bull run. And now you see 3,000 to 60,000 for Bitcoin, way less of a percentage gain, right? Right now it's at 20, Bitcoin's at like 30,000, 30,000 to 300,000, 30,000 to 1,000,000. It's still less than a lot of these calculations you can do where these projects just go from like fractions of an ADA or even a penny to like $1 or $3. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind when you're rolling around looking at these projects and checking out what value is what and which is what and what's going on, because it can be confusing. So the number one piece of advice is find projects you're inspired by. Find projects that are doing wonderful things in the world. Projects like World Mobile Token and Empower, they're doing affordable housing solutions in Africa, right? These are just wonderful projects to look at, to see what they're doing, teach you a lot about life and a lot about the world. Then start doing some calculations and checking things out. Because this space isn't just to sit here and throw money and to make money and all of that. It's about being behind beautiful initiatives and being a part of that, being part of the decentralized network of these ecosystems. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that to think on, to chew on. I might do some up-close videos of this, and through time, I just kind of set this thing up here because I've been doing it on notebooks and things like that, but I wanted to have something here to track so I can look at it. I'm going to leave you with this concept to think on, to stew over until the next video comes out. So we'll see you all soon. Thanks for watching this far. And if you've watched this far, congratulations to you. You're really taking something serious. You're taking your life serious and in your own hands. And I appreciate that. So until next time, be well, be safe. See you soon.